Like the conversation going, that's great.
It's all my entire life. It's already.
Careful, now this one's being recorded, so you're picking up audio and picking up whatever Bob's doing up here, so. You got questions, comments, keep them clean as we go through this, but they wanted to use this for something in the future. But anyway, Bob Mann, he's a senior risk manager for us out of the Wausau office. Unfortunately, only for about another 3.5 months or whatever equates to. Bob's gonna fly off into the wonderful world of retirement, so good for Bob. But Bob has been going around doing this presentation, not only at these events, but with all of our leaders, field leadership, our superintendents and upcoming foremen. Bob's done this presentation professionally at different safety conferences. I think ASSP, Michigan Safety Council, things like that. If you've done it elsewhere, you can tell them that. But very polished presentation here, but hopefully you pick up a few nuggets out of this. Again, it's something that we all struggle with, is we always want to say, oh, they're just being complacent, right? Everybody just being complacent. And that's what we give our causal factors to. But Bob's going to kind of explain the difference between complacency and indifference and how we can hopefully combat it. Each one of us here and folks that you have leading your field folks as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob and have at it.
I do these a little bit differently. I call them conversations. I don't call them presenting or anything like that. I call it the conversation. And I do it a little differently in one way is I will not ask the entire group a question, but I hate the sounds of crickets. I ask individuals questions. But I need you to be engaged in this in order for you to get something out of it. So I can't have you sitting there worried about, oh man, it's dropping a call on me and I was thinking about something at work or I was looking at my phone. I just don't have anything I think is intelligent to say at that point. Because I can't have you worried about that and stressing on that instead of focusing on the presentation itself. So I have a way to kind of get out of it. I've got a way where you can go, you know what, I'm just not ready for that question and I don't really want to answer it. And all you got to do is just say pass. And I'll move on or someone else may shout out an answer. I already see you writing down here and say pass every single time. If you try to do that, I literally will come back and sit down right next to you and we'll work out together. But I need you to be engaged because it's important to be engaged in it. But I can't have you worried that you're going to all of a sudden be all the time. The next thing I want to talk before we get into this is why is this important? Why did we take the time and effort to put something like this together? OSHA and a couple of universities went and pulled in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of incident and accident reports because they were trying to figure out if there were common causal factors out there for them to figure out what they can put their resources for. And when they got all of these hundreds of thousands of incident and accident reports together, they did word searches on them in order to figure out if there was some common causal factors. And they did a word search with complacency or complacent. And what percentage of those incident and accident reports do you think came up with complacent or complacency in there as a causal factor or the factors why the incident happened? 60%. 60%. What percentage do you think? 70%. I'll pick on one more person. What percentage do you think?
90%.
Well, 67%. 60%. Or 67% of all of these incident and accident reports they looked at came up with complacency or complacent as a causal factor or the factor that the incident happened. So many that organizations like the ASSP, the BCSP, some of your other safety organizations went to OSHA and said, you need to do something about this. And some of them were pressuring OSHA to say, hey, you need to put this in the top 10. Well, anyone in here who's been through OSHA 30 or is a safety professional knows the OSHA top 10 is the number, your top 10 citations they issue. Well, there's no way to issue a citation for complacency. But that's how much they were putting an effort on this, saying this is important. We need to get in front of this. We need to start doing something here. Hence, why we put this together. So everyone should have received a penny with a stone on it or a stone with a penny on it, right? These are not to throw at me if I tell a corny joke. They're not to throw at me if I'm getting boring or anything like that. The appropriate PPE, and we just went through and redid this whole building, so all the marks of the walls probably would get me terminated before I retired. And by the time we're done with our conversation, I'm hoping that penny and stone will have a meaning and a purpose. Now, in order for us to have a conversation on complacency or basically anything, we have to have a common definition. We have to have the parameters of what our conversation is going to be. If we were going to talk about quarterbacks in the NFL and I said, hey, you got to tell me who the best quarterback is in the NFL, all of you will come up with someone different because we don't have a common definition or the parameters that we're going to use for having this discussion. Now, I'll have 3 photos that I bring up here. In the first 2 photos, there'll be 2 people working in them, and we'll have a quick conversation as to who do we believe would be complacent and who may be indifferent. But before I get to that, you're not going to believe this, but complacency is actually a neurological, biological function of your brain. It's human nature. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't. It is actually a neurological thing that happens in your brain, period. Indifference, on the other hand, is a personal choice. One of the ways I like to explain complacency is all of us have been on a shoreline somewhere and watched the waves constantly come up and hit that shoreline and wash the shoreline away. That's what complacency is. It's constantly hitting your brain, constantly hitting you, washing that stuff away. Well, on a river or a lake, we'll go and we'll put a wall up or we'll put stones and stuff up to stop those waves from eroding our brain, basically causing complacency. But if we don't maintain that wall or those rocks or whatever else that we have out there, what happens? The water eventually gets around them and starts eroding the shore again. Complacency is the same thing because it is a neurological and biological function of your brain. Indifference, on the other hand, is a personal choice. You choose to be indifferent. So in our first photo here, I always like picking on people in the back because they think they can hide. Who do you think would be the complacent person in that photo? Just your opinion.
The guy at the board on the back.
Guy with the board on his back.